Hello, everyone. I'm Nathan at the European People's Party, and on behalf of the EPP, welcome to another episode of EPP Family Talks. Over the past several weeks, we've had the privilege of speaking with leaders from throughout our political family about the ideas and projects they've been working on. Today, it is our great pleasure to welcome Dr. Anže Logar, Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Republic of Slovenia. So we will try to connect with him now. Hopefully, here I think we've found him. It's always a bit of an adventure. Welcome to all of our other viewers, and I think we are now connecting with our Minister of Foreign Affairs from Slovenia. Minister, welcome.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today as part of our EPP Family Talk series. In particular, thanks for being brave enough to go on Instagram. It's a more fun and flexible platform in a way, but it's also a little bit more unpredictable. So thanks for that. It's a pleasure speaking with you today. We have Christian saying hi from Romania, one of our viewers. So we've started all of these interview series by simply asking our EPP leaders during this time of pandemic, during such a strange several weeks, several months, how are you doing? How have you been adapting? How have you been coping?
Well, I sworn in on the 13th of March. It was the second day of epidemic call in Slovenia. So anyway, I was apparently thrown into the sea of virus, adopting measures, and it was in a way a special moment for diplomacy. For the last 3 months, we were mainly dealing with adopting all measures we had to take and adopt for preserving the health of our fellow citizens. And the role of diplomacy was less, let's say, spreading the good name of your country abroad, but rather communicate with your neighbors and other countries how to survive and have a still good relation while your borders are closed and people cannot move, as is it one of the main, let's say, freedoms of European Union. So it was very demanding time, and it required quite, let's say, different approach in comparison to normal time. So I was frequently, let's say, more than once even, or twice or 3 times per day in phone line or audio video conference with my colleagues from neighboring countries, trying to, let's say, establish a path for traffic, for trucks, for delivering goods, and as well to exchange views on the measures that we were taken and other countries were taken. Like pandemic COVID-19 affects us very strongly, so we have to adapt with measures to preserve jobs, to preserve social security, to preserve the part of economy, and as well to adopt blueprint of legislative proposal that enabled this transition from economy freeze to slowly releasing all the measures that were taken. So it was very demanding time, and only now I'm quite happy that we are coming back to business as usual. That means that I'm able to travel abroad now in a bit, let's say, smaller proportion, and to meet fellow ministers in person. It's very difficult to establish, this close relationship with ministers through audio video conference. However, thanks God we had this opportunity as today, that we were able to exchange all views and as well partially to negotiate what we had to negotiate.
You mentioned your government took office in the middle of March. I should point out your government is led by your party, SDS, the Slovenian Democratic Party, also the party of our Prime Minister, Prime Minister Janša, with one of our other EPP member parties also in the coalition, New Slovenia. I heard you say in a video message some time ago, Slovenia has ended basically the epidemic of COVID-19 in the country. What would you say? Could you give us an update on this? And what would you say your government has done right in bringing about this very positive outcome?
So prior taking the office, previous government, I mean, left-leaning government, extreme left-leaning government, they in a way neglected the threat of COVID-19. So when we sworn in, we had the very first night, a night session. It lasted for a couple of hours. And in 4 days, we already adopted legislative proposal. It was anti-corona package number 1, where we, took measures to preserve jobs and to retain this social safety net for all fellow citizens that were, threatened by the stop of economy turning around. So, and at the same time, we adopted the several rounds of measures progressively. So from, for prohibiting to move from one constituency to another, requirement to wear masks, stop the public transport and all other things, and establish certain time frames for visiting shops, close shops for in Sunday, and etc. So in a way we took quite severe measures, but at the same time we did not call the state of emergency. So we did it everything in normal legislative proposals, and so the quick response and well measured proposals were, I think, the result of what triggered this good result, that we were able to lift all the main restriction until the end of May, and call the, let's say, COVID-free country from 1st of June. However, our regulation is prepared in a manner that we can always, should circumstances arise, take a step backward. So we always can backtrack in case there is a, let's say, possibility of second outburst. That's why we recently closed our borders for the countries of Western Balkans, due to the fact that they had the second outburst, and the number of patients and those infected is on a very steep line of increasing the number. So should it happen anywhere else, we would adopt the same measure in a way. And the role of diplomacy is that our neighbors understand this, because this is for the sake of health of our citizen, and as well for the sake of the health of their citizen, not to let's say, allow the circumstances that would enable another or a second or a third outburst of the virus.
Let's maybe talk now about the European level, European politics. You mentioned you're able to travel around now, you're able to have meetings in person and do sort of the diplomatic work which you had been planning to do before this pandemic started. So my question would be, what are the priorities of the new Slovenian government? And maybe more specifically, what are your priorities as Minister of Foreign Affairs now, beyond simply dealing with the coronavirus crisis?
Well, there is an imminent question of reignition of economy. I mean, we were already hardly hit, and our primarily task is to give economy boost, another start. I mean, in order to regain what we lost in this year, in the year of 2021. So here we have to work hand in hand with other countries, as we are all interdependent, and as well on the level of European Union. It's of utmost importance that EU, on the level of prime ministers and presidents of state, achieve an agreement on this recovery package. So multi-annual financial framework, and as well recovery instrument that would enable our countries to invest in sectors that were the most affected and to invest in the sector that has the biggest value added for future time. So in a way, for us, it's very important that prior summer holidays, the chief of governments get an agreement on these two packages, that we all, in case if there is any obstruction, step back in order to get 2 steps further, because we need these funds, some countries more, some countries less, and at the same time to prepare European Union in a manner that would never happen again, that our countries would depend solely on the market of one country, would fight for the medical equipment on the one market, and in a way try to steal from each other on the expense of solidarity, which is one of the bases of European Union. So that's why we put in our TRIO program, so this is the second priority, presidency TRIO program, to first of all establish this critical production chain on the reach of the hand whenever you need, in the quantity you need in case another such a major crisis arise, and at the same time to prepare to make a plan, strategic plan for combating or dealing with a pandemic or cyber attack or any other attack or, let's say, event with the magnitude of pandemic as we were facing now, or as we faced 10 years ago, financial crisis. I think European Union should be prepared on such occasion, and as well to enable or to preemptively prepare this, crisis management within the functioning of the Union. And the third, we want to do everything at home, let's say, to enable new investments, to enable new developments in the industry that is the future. I mean, digitalization, green industry, in order to, overtake the stalemate what we are facing now. So mainly this I would put forward as a priority for our government.
Just before the next question, I would issue a special welcome to one of our Forza Italia chapters, along with all of our viewers. I wanted to pick up on what you were talking about with the trio. So Slovenia has an upcoming presidency in 2021. My understanding is that one of the Slovenian presidency's priorities will be, like the Croatian presidency has had as a priority, working with the Western Balkans on their path towards European integration, on their European perspective, something very important for our EPP family. There was just this summit in Zagreb a few weeks ago on this, and the EPP has had strong statements on this. Of course, the Council has open talks with Albania and North Macedonia now. Why would you say this is such an important policy area to focus on, and what would your message be to accession countries?
First of all, is the question of credibility. We made a promise in the past. We had a thorough cooperation with the countries of Western Balkan, and it's our duty to, in a way, keep the promise, keep the word, and work with them in order to enhance and develop their society, their institution, the rule of law, the field of trade, and all other specters that can be, achieved through the enlargement process. Imagine, I can't imagine myself in Slovenia when we started our negotiations, and one day there would be practically with no reason European Union would say, well, we have a second thought, let's wait for another moment, we need some more time in order to rethink our agenda. So that's why we are always putting forward this question of enlargement on the Western Balkan. we used enlargement process to get our society, our institutions, our like sub institution up to the democratic level of European Union, to adopt the values of European Union, the rule of law, where we still need something, to do. And I urge all those countries to use this vehicle, to use this possibility to develop themselves, to use the hand of European Union and as well the process, the enlargement process, to enhance their system that would, let's say, follow the benchmarks of European Union. And this is, I think, something what their fellow citizen would appreciate a lot. So, okay, you enter or you step into European Union, but this is because of your fellow citizens, to live better, to give them better opportunities, and to, let's say, adopt the democratic values that the developed world today wants to pursue. So I think this is kind of very good means, and the enlargement was very successful policy for a big part of European continent. And we think that this part of the Europe continent should enter in and should be allowed to, let's say, further develop in the direction of European Union.
I have one final, more serious policy-related question before maybe a couple of less serious, less formal questions for you, and that is about just EPP in general, EPP leadership in general. EPP on the Western Balkans issue has had a very clear, strong position in supporting accession of these countries, supporting the perspective of Western Balkan countries. How have you seen EPP leadership in general over these past, let's say, few weeks of crisis, especially? Well, I should say as well, you have a unique vantage point on this as well, being a very active member of our foreign ministerial meetings. So you see our other ministers and some of our commissioners regularly meeting to discuss these issues.
Well, I used to be international secretary of SDS, of my party. And I remember traveling with the then and as well as today's Prime Minister, Mr. Janša, to there was one castle nearby Brussels. And there were really, like intensive talks prior EU summits. And you met there your fellow colleagues from other countries. And I see this extremely important in today's even more connected world. So I think what I was missing now, but not to blame anyone, blame COVID-19. What I was missing this personal touch. So meeting in person, because only that way you can establish this bond that helps you overcome different perspective or views you have among different members of political family. We all have, let's say, national agenda, and those national issues time to time collide. But if you have a normal personal relations with your fellow colleagues from another country, you can always solve the problem. And in EPP, we were able to solve the problem. I think this audio video conference is useful for, let's say, adopting issues that are not very, difficult, while all other more intriguing questions you should solve in person. So this what I was missing, but it was much better to communicate via audio video conference than not communicating at all. So I think in that sense it was a good initiative from EPP party that we met before, let's say, foreign affairs committees and discussed things, even though we did not achieve as much as we could should we meet in person.
Well, on this note of the personal touch, you mentioned as minister, you're now able to travel again a bit. Tourism is picking up now. Borders are opening up again. Restrictions are lifting. So a more informal question for you, just to help us and our viewers get to know you a little bit better. Is there anywhere, personally speaking, that you would most like to visit now in these next few weeks?
Well, next 2 weeks. Well, I have
next, let's say over the summer.
Well, because next 2 weeks I will still work, and I will still work in the end of July. I mean, look, our government is very, business oriented, coming from the EPP family, center right, and we want to, let's say, invite you all in Slovenia to use our tourist services. You're more than welcome. We have many things to offer. And we as well gave our fellow citizens a special vouchers to spend in Slovenia in tourist facilities. So me as a devoted Slovenian, I will spend this voucher in Slovenia. I will spend my summer holidays in Slovenia. I will in a way rediscover Slovenia, to see all these beauties, to swim in Slovenian Sea. I mean, it's not Slovenian, it's Adriatic Sea, but we have, smaller part of it as well. Under our borders, I will see the beauties of our mountains and walks in the parks and things like this. So this is my, let's say, wishful holiday with my closest, with my family.
Well, Slovenia definitely has all of that, mountains and sea and forests. Just personally speaking, I was able to visit Lake Bled several months ago. Amazing place. So indeed, very, very much to see. One final question for you, a question which we've asked many of our EPP leaders, and that is, would you have a book or a film or a series you've recently encountered which you would recommend?
Well, for the book, I don't think so you heard of it. I was invited as a lecturer on the Luxembourgish branch of Miami University. And at the end, they gave me a book of one of, not founder, but one of the, let's say, high officials of the Miami University in the past, John Dolibois, who was a kind of prosecutor in the Nuremberg process. He was inquiring the inmates of the Nuremberg process. And it's extremely interesting book, and I recommend it to read it, to see how important, how important is what you think about what you can achieve. So everything is achievable if you believe, if you have trust in you, and if you use all possibilities. And he did it, and he was very successful. At the end, he finished as ambassador of United States in Luxembourg. I really recommend. The address is Patron of Circles and Ambassador's Story. It's a very interesting book. The second, regarding the movie, well, I'm a football fan as well. And what I liked, what I looked, in recent time was the movie of Pelé, the legend, the story of legend or something. It goes like this. It's really nice story, and it's, in a way, has the same message. Whenever they said to you, don't play it like Carioca, don't like you do because it's not modern, go for it. It's your style. So in a way, I think this is very important message. At the end, you prevail.
Well, thanks so much for those recommendations. A very positive, hopeful notes to end on, I think. Dr. Anže Logar, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Slovenia, thanks for taking the time to speak with us today. On behalf of the EPP, thanks so much for the good work that you're doing.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks to all of our viewers for tuning into this episode of EPP Family Talks. Please join us again next time. We'll be back next week with new episodes. Have a great afternoon and a great weekend, and see you next week.
See you.